safety impact or not. Satu. Yang kedua, effect in terms of efficacy or not kalau kita bagi dekat the healthy volunteers. Okay. Dan from there kita boleh estimate dosage for subsequent studies, and kita boleh have a basis for confirmatory study designs. Nah. So kalau untuk phase 2 biasanya kita ambil kita bagi in less than 500 population. Best 300 for 300 400, so it's enough already. Okay. And then we move to phase 3, which is therapeutic confirmatory. Masa ni kita dah ada some ideas, some results from the phase 2. So at this point of time, you might be able to send for new drug applications. Nah? And then what we look at the phase 3 adalah therapeutic confirmatory. Tadi kita explore baru phase 2. Phase 3 kita nak confirmkan. Okay, whether the one yang kita dapat in that a few hundreds of patients tu betul-betul ke in terms of dia punya efficacy dia and also safety profile dia. So as phase 3 to confirm that the drugs that we have created, okay, really effective and safe to be used. Nah? And we would like also to look for those relationship studies. Then we look for the what do you call benefit and risk assessments before we register the drugs. For phase 3 study, usually we conducted in more than 500 patients, usually in thousands of patients, but less than 50,000 lah. Usually more than 1,000, but less than 50,000. Okay. And once we have confirmed that the drug is effective and is safe, barulah kita marketed. Bila kita marketed, okay, dekat when it has already been marketed in our real population pun kita still buat surveillance study. Kita nak further refine the risk and benefit ratios. Okay. Kalau masih ingat tadi saya sebut pasal thiazolidinedione or Avania, masa phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, there is no problem. It's very safe and is very effective in reductions of the glucose level. And masa tu competitors, dia adalah one of the competitors with the metformin. Sebab dia je yang affect dia improve what they call insulin sensitivity. However, after being marketed, noted that it got some adverse drug reaction, yang mana patient develop patient who had been taken Avandia, they develop adverse reaction which is the heart failure. Okay, so we may need to refine further the dose, and then so that by altering ataupun refine the doses, we are able to have a better outcomes of the drugs. Okay, and sometimes we do phase 4 trial looking for the new indication. Kan? For instance, last few years, kot tak ingat lah. I got few what do you call application for new indications. Kan? There are lecturers who are looking for new indication for the drug that has been marketed. I cannot remember precisely, but there are at least 2 or 3 contoh that particular drug has been used for this kind of diseases, but based on the observation, they noted that patient kalau ambil this drug do have some what do you call benefit for other kind of diseases. So they would like to test for new indication for the drug. So they make a proposal and submit it for us to review and approve lah. Okay, and for therapeutic use or phase 1 study, we use for untested people, kan, bukannya dalam yang kedai tapi untested people, and sometimes special population such as elderly. Remember just now in the my morning punya talk, I cakap kalau studies usually dia kata 18 to 45, 60, tapi ada juga population yang ada diabetic, which says 60, 70, so you might give to this kind of population yang tak tested pun dalam study, but they might have a benefit from the anti-diabetic drugs. Okay. Right, next. So when we talk about drug development, we need to know the research regulatory for this drug development. For the basic research, disease discovery or drug discovery, meaning the pre-development phase, pada fasa ini, there is no regulatory looking at these phases. Okay. But when the drugs has been created and is going to be tested into the human being, okay, regardless whether they are healthy populations ataupun diorang adalah real patients, kita ada good clinical practice that are looking at these phases of trial. Okay, before they've been tested in the human, they are going to be tested in the animal. Kita ada good laboratory practice that are looking for the lab procedures in conducting the clinical trials. When the drug has been manufactured, okay, sorry, when the drug has been what do you call, approved to be efficacy, then going to be manufactured. Then they have the good manufacturing practice. They are going to look for the what do you call, the drugs during the manufacturing process. So these are the the research regulatory that are going to look for the what do you call, the drug development phase accordingly. Okay, so you need to know this one. Sebab contoh kalau you nak buat preclinical phase trial, then you have to comply to GLP, good lab practice. Kalau you nak buat clinical trial, you kena what do you call, comply to GCP. And kalau you nak settle everything, you nak manufacture you punya product, then you have to comply to GMP. Okay, right. So this is to answer one of your friends punya question this morning. Okay. Study design selections you tu, katakan you nak buat study. Now you would like to design your study. There are a few factors that you need to look for. The nature and purpose of the research problem. So you kena tengok apa research problem you, apa research hypothesis you. Okay. From there you boleh tengok, okay, mana research design yang sesuai dengan you punya research problems. Okay. Number two, researchers knowledge and experience, interest and motivation. Okay. So biasanya kalau postgrad student ni sebab baru kan dalam the field, so dia punya research knowledge and experience tu um, lacking sikit lah. So usually kita akan advise dia untuk buat benda yang mudah untuk dia faham, because bila you buat research tapi you faham, you tak boleh perform betul-betul. And then bila you dapat result pun you macam blur lagi kan. So that's why kita kata you need to tally according to your research knowledge and experience. And also you punya interest. Kalau lah you punya interest not in diabetes, so there is no point of you doing something in what do you call, in related to diabetes, because you takkan ada you punya motivation to do it. Okay, so look at yourself. Okay, ask yourself what is your interest, what is your motivation, and you have enough knowledge and experience to do it or not. Okay. Number three, research ethics and principle. Okay, you have gone through, you have select everything accordingly. Number one, number two. Now, bila you nak buat research proposal, you have to look for whether your research proposal tu comply tak to the ethics and principle of conducting research. Kalau tak comply, then you have to revise your proposal. For instance, kan, kalau you kata you nak test this drug in the real patient and you nak test again placebo, kalau lah sebenarnya dalam market, okay, dalam practice dah ada the other drugs that might work for this patient, you tak boleh versus placebo. You kena versus with the current drugs which you being given for this group of patients. Okay, and number four, you tengok you punya subject participant. This is another thing yang saya cakap dengan student saya juga. You kena tengok, okay, cukup tak sample size yang you nak tu. Okay, kalau ikut sample size calculation, you were supposed to have this number, contoh 300, 400, 500. And then you kata you nak buat di suspect. Cukup tak that sample size di suspect saja? Kalau tak cukup, then you might need to add another center to make sure that you are able to get the right numbers of participants. Okay. But again, then you have tengok juga, okay, cukup tak masa you? Ada tak budget untuk you pergi ke sana? Boleh tak you pergi? So these are the things that you need to consider, which is in terms of the final one, your resource and time. Okay. You nak you punya numbers cukup, tapi resources cukup tak? Masa cukup tak? Okay. So these are the things that you need to consider bila you plan which study design that you would like to do. Okay. These are the factors that might affect you punya selections of this study design. Now, kita dah fikir dah apa yang kita nak buat, dan contoh kita plan nak buat experimental research lah, because tajuk pun experimental research, tak boleh ajar benda lain kan. So, the first thing that you need to do adalah you need to identify what issues that you are going to study. Okay. Now, simple. Okay, I bakal bagi contoh yang simple. I nak study sama ada, is there any other anti-diabetic drug that would helps in terms of the reductions of glucose control in patient yang memang akan ada GIT upset. Maksudnya dia akan ada nausea, vomiting bila ada ambil anti-diabetic drug. So I have to look for that kind of drugs. Okay. Then kena buat literature review. Second thing adalah buat literature review. Ada tak any literature that mentions that yes, there is a compound that can help in terms of reductions of diabetic control, sugar control. So boleh jadi improvement of diabetic control. On top of that, dia help juga in terms of the elevations, what do you call, if you plan to have a drug that don't have a GIT upset. So this is the kind of drugs. Nah? And then from there, bila dah ada literature review tu settle dah, then you tengok you punya research participant you, tengok study population you, and then create you punya inclusion exclusion criteria, so that when you recruit the right questions according to your study criteria, and you develop the data collection procedure so that you punya data collection procedure tu akan menjawab you punya problem research. Research problem actually. Kalau you punya data collection tidak menjawab research problem, tak boleh juga. Okay, you kena cara you menjawab. Contoh, research problem you adalah, can these A drugs, okay, can these ADA drug reduce the blood glucose level in diabetic patient, because by reductions of that particular blood glucose level, kita boleh faham bahawasanya this patient will have a good diabetic control. Okay, so you kena cari apa cara so untuk you provekan that you punya research problem tu jawab. Mestilah tadi macam cakap tadi lah, you kena tengok hemoglobin A1C you must be collected. Okay, fasting blood sugar must be collected, and then 2 hours postprandial must be collected. Okay, so that you can prove that yes, this particular measurement would prove that, okay, that my akan menjawab you punya research problem by proving that okay, there is a reduction to the blood glucose level. Okay, then once you have able to identify what do you call data collection procedures, okay, then you need to do the data collections. Once you got the data, you need to send it for data analysis. Bila dia data dah analysis data, then you got all the information, okay, you got all the result. Then you have to look whether your result tu would had answered you punya research problem. Research you what do you call, information dapat answer you punya research problem atau tidak. Okay, and kalau answer then you conclude. Tak answer pun you kena conclude juga. Okay, basically you can say that however from my studies, the what do you call, the drug that has been tested does not prove that it is effective enough to reduce the blood glucose level, ataupun is effective enough to improve the blood glucose level. However, it is not effective enough to get rid of the GIT upset. Okay, so that would be your conclusion. So this is how you were supposed to design, perform your study actually. Now let's go in detail, okay, in designing, conducting, and also analysis of your study result. The first thing that you need to do adalah designing the experiment. When we talk about designing experiment, the first thing yang you ada, step pertama dalam you punya designing of experiment adalah formulate your questions. Okay, you kena tahu, you kena create question that you would like to answer. Okay, however, you kena ingat, bila you nak create the research question, your research questions must use the language of cause and effect. Okay, what effect are you going to look for, and what is the cause of your effect? Contoh dekat bawah adalah, can nutrition cause higher test score? Okay, contoh, can vitamin P, okay, cause higher test score if given to the right population lah. Number 2, can aspirin cause reduction in the symptoms of depression? Okay, the cause is aspirin, the effect will be reduction in the symptoms of depression. Number 3, is drug ADA effective enough to control blood glucose in type 2 diabetes mellitus patient? The cause here will be the drug ADA. The effect here adalah reduction ataupun control of the blood glucose level. And number 4, can X drug cure the eczema? The cause will be X drugs, then the effect will be curing of the eczema. Okay, so I'll take example for number 3, is drug ADA effective enough to control the blood glucose in type 2 diabetes mellitus patient? Is your research question, and you would like to answer this research question. So what you need to go to this step 2, which is identifying the dependent variable. Number 3, identifying the independent variable. Okay, what is your dependent variable over here? Okay, dependent variable adalah what you hope to change to the experiment. Okay, that's why kita panggil dependent, because dia akan berubah, dia dependent to your experiment. For cause and effect, this is the effect. Okay, the effect of your trial adalah change in this dependent variable. Okay, so the factors depending on the changes. Example, kalau kita is drug A effective to control blood glucose level in type 2 diabetes mellitus patient just now. Okay, you nak tahu sama ada if by taking the drug ADA we improve the diabetic control, then okay, Your dependent variable should be the blood sugar parameter. Apa blood sugar parameter? Your fasting blood sugar, your 2 hours postprandial and you punya hemoglobin A1C. The blood glucose level in the drugs, it will be your dependent variable because this parameter, this blood sugar parameter is depending to your cost, okay, your intervention for them to change. Okay, so this is what we call a dependent variable. And mind you, this morning I dah mention, okay, your dependent variable must be measurable. Kalau tak boleh measure, kalau tak boleh measure, susah you nak prove kan. Okay, what are the things that cannot be measured? Um, yang contoh lah kalau you dah kata nak guna ni lah sebagai dependent variable tapi benda tu tak boleh measure. Apa contoh dia? Contoh, if is drug A effective enough to cause my patient to be happy, happiness cannot be measured kan because benda tu subjective kan. So you can't use that one as your punya dependent variable. You have to use something which is able to be measured actually. Okay. Step 3 adalah recognizing the independent variable. Okay. Your independent variable adalah the factor that you think that can cause change to the dependent variable. Just now tadi you punya dependent variable adalah blood glucose parameter. Apa yang boleh mengubah you punya blood glucose parameter adalah you punya independent variable. This is what we call the cost. Kalau dalam cause and effect, this is the cost. Okay. And dalam case ni adalah intervention ataupun treatment yang you bagi kepada you punya dependent variable just now. Okay. Contoh, does nutrition cause higher test score? Nutrition tu adalah independent variable because that nutrition level tak depending to the test score tapi test score you depending to nutrition level. So test score you will be dependent variable and nutrition will be independent variable. Dalam our case just now, is drug ADA effective enough to control blood sugar in type 2 diabetes mellitus? Okay, yang tak depend to other things adalah you punya drug ADA. So this is what we call independent variable. Your drug ADA adalah your intervention ataupun treatment yang you bagi. So it's independence, is an independent variable. Whereas your blood sugar parameter, blood glucose level tu will be your dependent variable because that blood sugar parameter will be depending to the drug ADA for them to change. Okay, so you have identify your dependent variable, you have identify your independent variable. Okay. The next step adalah for you to pick population. Okay. Now, you need to identify the relevant population. Kalau lah, contoh kat sini lah. Kalau lah you nak study, okay, adult, what do you call, autistic disease, hypertensive disorders, hyperactive disorders. Okay, you nak tengok dalam mana you nak tengok. Adakah you nak tengok dalam kanak-kanak, which is ataupun secondary school, ataupun college students. Okay, ataupun adult group. So you kena identify satu those yang ada ADHD, yang kedua population mana you nak tengok. Okay. Yang ketiga, contoh kedua adalah are you interested in young adult old patient with chronic respiratory problem? You kata you nak tengok patient yang ada chronic respiratory problem. Which study population? Adult population or old age population? However, dalam kedua-dua kategori, dalam kedua-dua soalan ini, okay, dia punya population yang besar adalah untuk soalan nombor 1 ADHD groups. Soalan nombor 2 chronic respiratory problem. So bila you punya population adalah population yang perlu ada chronic respiratory problem atau perlu ada ADHD. Yang sama ada young adult, old age, what do you call school children or secondary itu adalah study group yang you dah refine according you punya inclusion exclusion criteria ataupun targeted population. Okay. So dalam our case just now, is drug ADA effective enough to control blood glucose in type 2 diabetes mellitus patient? So study population kita, okay, adalah population yang ada type 2 diabetes mellitus. So this is our study population. Now kita dah recognize study population kita yang mana they are the person who have a type 2 diabetes mellitus. Now step 4, kita dah tahu dah this is the what we call the study population. Kita nak select the subject, okay. In selecting the subject, you need to select the subject from your study population. You tak boleh ambil outside study population ni. Kita dah recognize dah, okay. Our study population must be those patients who have type 2 diabetes. Kita nak pick up daripada type 2 diabetes ni, okay. So you kena narrow down further. So tengoklah If you're interested, population is so small, for instance, one high school, you might be able to study the whole population. Okay. Kalau lah you punya target population is small, okay, contoh type 2 diabetes mellitus patient attending SASMED, small population, kan? So boleh je ambil semua. Tapi kalau lah you interested in population issues, for instance, diabetic patient, generally, you can study any patient who coming to the assessment, for coming to HTA, for coming to any kita panggil apa, study site. Okay, dia tak perlu ambil semua dekat one site, tapi you kena ambil at the study sites. So you need to do a random sampling. Okay, you need to do a random sampling, so that nanti you akan what they call, able to get rid of the bias. Okay. To be able to do so, okay, then you have to have a specific inclusion exclusion criteria to define a subject selection. Contoh, okay, you need what they call a type 2 diabetes patient who has been diagnosed with diabetes for the past 10 years and the age must be between 21 to 45 years old. Contoh je ni kan. So you specify your inclusion criteria and you would like to exclude those who have diabetes mellitus as a secondary to the other problems. Contoh, ada patient yang develop diabetes mellitus second to gestational diabetes ataupun secondary to the other medical conditions such as Cushing syndrome, acromegaly. So you tak nak yang tu. So that particular groups of patient, you tak buat exclusion criteria. So you would like to exclude this kind of patients. In other words, you need to come up with specific inclusion exclusion criteria so that nanti barulah you punya result you lagi lah what do you call accurate. Okay. Then under the subject selections also, you must have a random selection. You need to ensure that your subject have diverse sets of characteristics that reflect the population in genders. Okay, kalau boleh lah, that's why kita kata tadi age 18 to 45 years old. Kalau 18 to 60 years old lagi better, okay? Thus, you will help you to avoid introducing unintended variables lah. Sorry, sakit leher. Sorry, I memang tak sihat sangat. Okay? Now, kalau lah ada benda dalam study itu boleh affect you punya outcome. Contoh, if education level is significant enough to your study, for example, your population should include people very little education as well as people with PhD. So you should not have a subject group composed only of the college groups only. So kalau benda tu affect you punya study, contoh lah, kalau you study KAP, knowledge, attitude and perceptions of this money, cakap kan, sexual health educations among what do you call children. Tapi kalau education level will affect this, so you cannot you cannot focus on one education level only. It must be variety, nah. Or you may use random blood sampling method, or you may use a system in random assignment. Okay, so you need to do a random selection. Okay, sama ada simple random collection ataupun you may use a systems. Okay, now methods of random sampling. Okay. Okay, methods of random selection. There are several methods of randomly selecting subject. However, you need to make sure that the size is ideal and it varies greatly depending on the factors. Nah. So size is important. Aspects of size of effects also important. So you may use a sample size calculator. Yang ni biasa ada online lah, sample size calculator, so that you are able to select a group large enough to produce a statistically useful data. Okay. So this another thing which is important, because kalau lah sample size tak cukup, your data might not be statistically useful. Okay. Right, now methods random selection lagi banyak ni random selection, because it's one of the most important what they call criteria for a true experimental research. And then number generated dalam box, okay, yang another 20 tu katakan jadi 50% dalam you punya population kan. 20 lagi tu you kosongkan. So siapa-siapa yang pick up number 1 hingga 30, itu yang masuk you punya study. Yang kosong, kata kosong tu exclude from your study. This is a simple random sampling because your population is very small. Okay. In a larger population, you might need to take a systematic sample. For example, the second name on each page of directory, and use random number method so that you get a small subset, or you can use a system. In large population, usually we use a randomly sampled through stratified sampling method, in which we divide the population into homogeneous strata and then select individual from each group to generate a random sample population. Okay, This one nanti yang ni statistik akan ajar you further lah. Okay. Right. Part tu kita dah ada dah kita punya study population, study sample, sample size, kita punya independent variable, dependent variable, then design. So now we are running the experiments. Okay. Now, bila nak run experiment juga perlu untuk you do a randomization. In which that you randomize you punya subject into two groups. Satu experimental groups, yang kedua the control group. Okay. It is important for you to do randomization because it guarantees that any subject has equal chance of being in either group. Tak ada bias. Okay. Subjek ni dia ada chances to be in control, to be also in the experimental. So that's why kita kena buat randomization so that the subject will have equal chance. Okay. And you can use a random number generator to assign number to each subject. This is the simplest one. Or you can place them into two groups by numbers, assign the lower half the random numbers of the control, or whatever. As long as it is random, nah. Okay, you can do any type of random sampling as long as it is there so that you avoid the bias. Okay, the control group will not be given the treatment or intervention, so it allows you to measure the effect of the intervention. Okay, so you need to have a control. Number two, randomize. Okay. You need to have control because you nak tengok effect of the intervention. Kalau yang control group yang tak dapat intervention, apa dia punya outcome dia compare to those yang ada intervention. Okay. Now, step 2 adalah ensure blinding. Okay, dalam running of the running of the trial, beside randomization, blinding is also important. It can be single blinded, it can be double blinded. Okay. Bila kita kata single blinded, okay, subject ataupun study participant tak tahu pun which group they are in. Okay. If this condition is met, we call it as a single blinded. Okay. So it has to keep the two group identical in all aspect except the actual intervention or treatment. And this is part of controlling extraneous factors. Dalam kes ni, all study members, regardless of the group, should equally believe that they are receiving the real intervention or treatment. Okay. So you got control group, you got intervention group. Okay. Then these groups, okay, these participant in the two group ni dia tak tahu pun sama ada dia dapat real drugs ataupun dia dapat interventions ataupun dia sebenarnya dapat placebo. So this is called a single blindness. Okay. Yang kedua, step 3 adalah kalau you tak nak buat single blinded, okay, you go for double blinded. This is much more effective ataupun valid compared to the single blinded. Dalam case double blinded, the experimental ataupun the researcher, okay, kita pun tak tahu which subject in which group. Okay. Neither the subject, okay, nor kita tahu sama ada they were given the interventions ataupun they were given placebo sebenarnya. So this is what we call a double blind studies. Okay. Other way, it can remove possible extra variables that could affect the study. Pentingnya sebab dia boleh get rid of the extra variable that could affect the study. Okay. If the experiment are blinded, okay, they won't be able to inform the subject unconsciously and administer the innate treatment as carefully as possible, and have different people in charge of assigning subject to a group, administer treatment, and evaluate subject after treatment. Okay. So dalam kes ni, kalau kita yang blinded, okay, kita tak adalah macam this morning yang cakap kan, kadang-kadang kita ni ada macam nak bagi tahulah patient ni since dia dapat placebo, dia kena lagi strict control dia punya diet, kena very strict adhere to punya exercise, barulah nanti kita boleh tengok at the end of the day, regardless yang ambil ubat ke tidak, okay, result sama. Contohlah kalau kita dengki dengan orang yang buat ubat tu kan, okay. Tapi kalau kita yang create tu ubat, kita kata nak bagi tahu orang yang makan ubat ni yang dalam study group, dalam intervention group ni, they were supposed to be more compliance, okay, more strict, so that nanti kita boleh prove that the ubat is effective. Okay, nampak tak kat situ? Okay, sebab kita nak avoid the bias of ourselves. Okay, so what we need to do dalam this kind of situation adalah orang yang randomizekan subject into the group should not be us, have different people assign the subject to the group, have different people also administering the drugs to the subject, and have different people evaluating subjects after the treatments. Okay, so this is where you need a study team. Ada study members itu have a different roles. Okay, ada yang so-called administer ubat, collect the data. Okay, ada yang evaluate ataupun do a statistical analysis. So you got a different roles in one team. So barulah betul-betul bunyi double blinded. Kalau lah kita punya statistician pun tak tahu which patient get which group patient get which intervention, so this is triple blinded actually. Okay. Now, after that, step 4, we need to perform the pretest. Okay, why we need to conduct pretest adalah kita nak kena measure kita punya dependent variables before the experiment begin so that ia akan menjadi penanda aras baseline. Okay, baseline measurement. Contoh, we are testing tadi kan anti-diabetic drug in diabetic patient. So, semua patient, okay, regardless dalam control group ataupun dalam intervention group, kena ada pretest, kena ada baseline hemoglobin A1C, baseline fasting sugar, baseline postprandial level. Okay. Sometimes you tak perlu buat pretest dalam a group experiment. Okay, remember this money I ajar juga. Sometimes kita tak perlu buat pun kan, tapi it's better to have lah. Sebab dia akan reducekan the threat to internal validity. Okay. Then increase ability of the experiment to demonstrate cause and effect. So dia akan reducekan threat to internal validity. So dia akan further improve ability of the experiment to demonstrate cause and effect. Okay, walaupun tak pretest is not a requirement for a drug experiment, tapi it's good to have. You have more benefit in conducting pretest rather than not conducting pretest. Okay. So contohnya, in order to say that drug A cause reduction of the hemoglobin A1C, then you have to show that before drug A is given, okay, the result show that the hemoglobin A1C on the higher side. Okay. Right. Now, intervention. Now you are going to administer the intervention to the experimental group. Kita dah ada kita punya experimental group, kita dah ada control group. Now, so you need to then kita dah buat juga pretest. So now you need to administer the treatments to the experimental group. Okay. This is to make sure that the only difference between the experience of the experimental groups and the control group is the treatment itself. So di sini adalah at the end of the day, bila kita buat post test, kalau lah ada difference between control group dengan treatment group, kita puas hati sebab kita tahu dah the only difference adalah because that experimental group dapat intervention compared to the control groups. Okay. In clinical trial, we administer placebo to control groups. Okay. This placebo usually resemble the real treatment as close as possible, but in fact designed to have no effect. Okay. Maksud di sini adalah, kan, tadi kita kata kita ada control group, kita ada control group dengan ada treatment group. Treatment group kita bagi intervention. Dalam kes ni intervention kita adalah drug ADA. Dalam control group, kalau lah kita tak bagi apa-apa kat control group ni, mesti dia tahu bahawasanya dia adalah control group. Okay. So what we do adalah we create a placebo. Placebo ni sekali pandang, dia identical looking pill macam drugs tu juga. Okay. Tapi sebenarnya bila kita design, it have no effect. That's why kita usually panggil this a sugar pill. Ataupun kita panggil ni adalah a flour. Kita letak gandum ke, kita letak sugar saja ke, kita letak something dalam tu, tapi outside-nya macam dia replicate the drugs tu tadi. Okay. Now, once kita dah administer the interventions, then we need to conduct post test. Ni untuk kita measure the dependent variable, which is a study patients punya parameters. Okay. And this only conducted after the course intervention treatment is completed and should mirror the pretest as much as possible so that results are directly comparable. Dalam kes ni, sorry. Dalam kes ni, tadi remember, masa pretest tadi untuk dependent variable kita buat hemoglobin A1C, kita buat fasting blood sugar, kita buat postprandial glucose level. Dalam post test pun kita kena buat yang sama. So kena mirror the pretest as much as possible, barulah kita boleh compare. Tapi contoh kalau kita pretest kita buat hemoglobin A1C, post test kita buat fasting blood sugar, postprandial, mana boleh nak compare? Sebab the first result and the second result adalah benda yang berlainan. Okay, so it must be mirror the pretest as much as possible. Only then it be comparable. Okay. Right now part 3. Kita dah ada data. Okay. Now kita nak analyze the data kita ada. Kita dah ada result. Nah. Result the data. Nah. So during the statistical analysis, kita start dengan descriptive statistic. Okay. Kita calculate descriptive statistic so that you are able to communicate your data effectively and also provide information about the property of the data that you produce and allow your readers to understand important things about it from a single glance. Okay. contoh di sini adalah bila kita kata descriptive statistik, kita just ada descriptions of the data that we get. Okay. Contoh, contoh biasanya dalam descriptive statistik kita akan buat socio-demographic, lepas tu baru kita tengok descriptions of the data lah. Contohnya kat sini adalah average people who receive the vaccine got better 1.7 days sooner, 1.7 days sooner. Okay. Ataupun generally kita kata 50% of our study patient have improvement if in hemoglobin A1C. Contoh macam tu, very general, just to describe. Okay. Nah, lepas tu kita tengok kita punya data tendency. Okay, central data tendency of our data. Bila central tendency kita sama ada kita ambil mean, which is the average, ataupun kita ambil median yang kat tengah-tengah. Bila kita tengok data kita punya skew ke mana tu kan, or the mode. Okay. Contoh kat sini beri adalah in study of the effect of the caffeine on sleep, you will want to calculate the mean number of hours slept by members of the control and experimental group. Okay. Kalau lah kita study effect of the caffeine on the sleep, kita tengok semua study participant kita ni, okay, ambil dia punya study hours itu tu, number of study hours itu, kita campur dan kita meankan dia, tengok what is the average of study hours in our study population. Tu kalau kita ambil mean lah. Kalau kita ambil mean kita tengok kita punya data bila you aturkan ikut dia pun the lowest going to the highest numbers of hours, tengok yang mana duduk tengah-tengah. That will be your median. Okay. Right. And then tengok data distribution. There are many ways, many different ways to measure how the data are distributed, including range, variance, standard deviation. Saya tak go in detail in terms of statistical sebab you akan belajar dengan statistician. Saya bukan statistician, saya adalah researcher. Okay, and a GCP advisor. So I go more of the conduct of trial rather than the statistical analysis. Tapi I just bagi tahu briefly lah. Step 4, when you do a statistical analysis, you tengok data comparison. Okay. While this is a broad subject, you can make a good start by calculating basic descriptive statistics and running a t-test to look for differences observed, whether it's significant or not. Okay, tadi kita buat descriptive statistic, kan? Lepas itu kita nampak je briefly. Okay. Contoh dalam control group, numbers of hours yang tidur ni longer than those yang dalam intervention group yang ambil caffeine. Contoh lah. So it is a brief, just basic descriptive statistic. Tapi bila you buat further test, you buat a t-test study, you boleh compare, you compare pre and post, ataupun you compare experimental group dengan control groups. Okay, so t-test nak tengok correlation between the post-test dalam experimental versus control group. You nak tengok pre-test and post-test result. Okay. Right. Now, finally, you dah ada data tu ni, you test punya hypothesis. Whether your hypothesis tu shows to be significant or not. So, allow you to estimate how likely is that your result will produce by chance rather than a genuine experimental effect. Okay. Now, you are looking back at your hypothesis, and then you would like to know whether there is a statistical significant difference between your result in the control and experimental group. Okay, you have hypothesis mengatakan bahawasanya orang yang ambil ADA drugs, diabetic patient type 2 diabetic patient yang ambil ADA drug will have a better diabetic control. This is your hypothesis nah. As evidenced by reductions of the hemoglobin A1C, reduction of the fasting blood sugar level, and reduction of postprandial level. Again, this is your hypothesis. Then you tengoklah based on your result, ada tak statistically significant difference in between your control yang tak ada intervention dengan you punya group. Okay. T-test adalah common test of significant. It compares the difference between the means of two set of data in relation to the variation between data, and this can be calculated by hands or by using statistical software such as Microsoft Excel. Okay, walaupun begitu, saya tidak pernah calculate by hand. Usually saya akan guna statistik SPSF actually. Bila dalam SPSF tu mudah, you masukkan data, you just choose which test that you're going to choose. From there, dia akan keluarlah dia punya data yang dia buat t-test already. Okay. Now, kita dah complete, kita dah ada hypothesis testing yang been proved to have statistical significant or not. Then kita tengok kita punya eksperimen. Kita kena evaluate experimental research kita sebab kita tahu sama ada kita buat ni, perfect, nearly perfect, or okay lah, suara kuku saja. Okay. to know whether your experiments has been conducted appropriately, accordingly or not. Kita tengok ada tak limitation in your ability to control possible external factors. Okay. Contohlah macam dalam kes saya cakap tadi, diabetes. Memanglah kita kata kita dah make sure that all the patient have been given advice to follow to make sure bila kita test, dia punya sugar level itu turun atau naik hanyalah bergantung kepada ubat saja. ADA drug, our intervention, our treatment, our independent variable saja. Okay, that is our aim. Tapi kadang-kadang it is beyond our control to make sure that they comply to us. Okay, so you can mention that there is limitations in terms of ability to control possible external factors. Sebabnya we notice that majority of our patients ni satu poor education level kan, yang kedua they are living outside the country, so for them to get the right food is difficult. And then because they are living in rural area, they work hard, they don't have time to exercise, whatnot lah. So basically, is there any limitation in your ability to control your possible external factors or not? Okay. Then number two, to what extent your subject group reflect the larger population you hope to study? Okay. Kalau dalam kes ni, kalau boleh kita nak ambil semua patient, type 2 diabetic patient, because bila kita market, semua type 2 diabetic patient kita akan dapatkan ubat ni. Tapi is there any limitation to it? What extent that our study sample tu reflect our larger population bila kita nak study? Kalau dalam kes saya cakap tadi kan, kita hanya ambil hemoglobin A1C 7 to 10 ni dia punya inclusion criteria lah, and must be aged between 21 to 44 years old, 45 years old, 50 years old. And BMI must be between 27 to 30 kilogram per meter square. So dia limit you punya study population ni. Makan nanti bila there is no generalizability over there. Bila kita bagi kat real population ni, ada external threat to external validity over there. Okay. Number 3 adalah what alternative hypothesis could be sustained on the basis of the data. Contoh tadi lah. Kita kata sepatutnya drug ADA is able to reduce is able to control the blood sugar level in the diabetic patient as evident by this and that. Tapi kita boleh add another hypothesis yang mana compliance to the carbohydrate restrictions, compliance to the regular exercise is able to improve the sugar level compared to your ADA drugs. Contoh, ada tak sensitivity bersasaran in the base of data? Ada tak you tengok? Yang tak because dia dalam control group yang tak dapat intervention ni lagi ramai yang control blood sugar compared to those yang dalam intervention group. So it must be something over there kan. So number 4, when presenting your result, you could need to consider your limitation honestly and use them to suggest further lines of research. So dalam kes tadi, kita kata dah this is our limitation. So bila kita nak propose further study, kita kena make sure that all this limitation kita ni has been addressed so that bila kita dapat the result tu betul-betul tunjuk the cause and effect relationship. Okay? Right. I think that's all. Tepat-tepat 3 sebenarnya. Is there any questions you can ask me? Thank you very much. Okay, Assalamualaikum. Is there any questions?
Waalaikumsalam, Doktor. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, Assalamualaikum. Good luck for tomorrow.
Thank you, Doktor.
Okay.